Hello, fellow readers. Today I'm going to talk about The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Now here's just a quick summary to start off. Quentin Coldwater is brilliant but miserable. A high school math genius, he's secretly fascinated with a series of children's fantasy novels set in a magical land called Fillory, and real life is disappointing by comparison. When Quentin is unexpectedly admitted to an elite secret college of magic, it looks like his wildest dreams may have come true. But his newfound powers lead him down a rabbit hole of hedonism and disillusionment, and ultimately to the dark secret behind the story of Fillory. The land of his childhood fantasies turns out to be much darker and more dangerous than he ever could have imagined. I love this book for three reasons. I related to the main character, I loved the way it dealt with magic, and I felt like it was meant for a somewhat narrow group of people that I happen to identify with. That is, people who still actively enjoy children's fantasy despite no longer being children. I deeply appreciate and regularly indulge in the escapism of fairy tales, the Chronicles of Narnia, and my favorite children's fantasy series, the Enchanted Forest Chronicles. But on the other hand, as an adult, I also understand that these books offer a very unrealistic worldview, and the people in them don't actually behave like real people, which is why I also read other things. I think that Lev Grossman also falls into this category of adult lovers of children's fantasy, and the main character, Quentin, definitely does. And so this book tries to fulfill our needs for both fantasy and reality. The characters in The Magicians behave like real teenagers. That is to say, when they get whisked away to a secret magic school, they spend their free time drinking and having sex, as opposed to, say, exploding Snap and chess. The second reason that I love this book was the magic. Because Quentin has read the Chronicles of Narnia, What? Fillory. I'm pretty sure that Lev Grossman wrote this whole book about the Chronicles of Narnia, and then when he tried to get it published, they told him that it was copyright infringement and he had to change it. So there are 5 kids instead of 4 who go to Fillory with buttons instead of rings, and the world is presided over by a talking ram, and to get there they have to jump into pools that are in a ruined city instead of a forest, but it's totally Narnia. Except without the blatant religious agenda. But anyway, because Quentin loved this series about Fillory, and because he lives in the same world as us and has presumably been exposed to things like The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, they actually mention Quidditch on more than one occasion. He has expectations about magic, just like us, and he is hilariously wrong. Turns out, magic is hard. Sort of like the Karate Kid, Quentin expects to go right in and start learning badass ninja spells, and instead it's wax on, wax off. He spends the whole first year learning Old Church Slavonic and trying to move a marble. In magic, like in most things in life, how useful it is directly proportional to how dangerous and how hard it is to control. And since magic gives one the power to bend the laws of nature, it's pretty much the hardest thing there is to learn. There's also a continuing theme in the book about whether or not magic really is a good thing, and whether or not they wouldn't just be better off without it. And many of the points that the characters make about magic can also be made about something like nuclear power. Even though it has the power to save lives and do a great deal of good for humanity, it has already led to a huge amount of death and suffering, and will likely continue to do so for the foreseeable future. And the last thing I love about this book, Quentin Coldwater, God bless him. Cynical, operatic, totally miserable. I get this kid. Even though we don't have very much in common, like, I was actually happy in high school, I feel like I very easily could have been him. Had I not had fantastic parents, or found the group of friends that I did, I see where he's coming from. And I'm about to reveal one of my less flattering character traits, but I really like characters that are marginalized because of their intelligence. I relate to that. And I bet a lot of you do too. And ultimately, unlike most fantasy books, The Magicians is not about some cosmic struggle between good and evil. It's really just about Quentin, who is desperate to find happiness and just can't figure out where it is. This is one of the main commentaries that Grossman makes on life, because Quentin gets everything he has ever fantasized about, and he still isn't happy. And that's because happiness is a choice that we make, and not something that's given to us. Like Quentin, many people go through their lives thinking that if they could just insert goal here, then they would be happy, but that's just not how it works. And even though The Magicians is kind of a cautionary tale in that respect, the idea that usually happiness is something that we can choose is really a pretty optimistic takeaway, which is good, because honestly, otherwise, this book is a bit of a downer. So there you have it. I love The Magicians. Now, because the purpose of this vlog is to get you to read more, the following is a list of recommendations from me based on The Magicians. If you're a fan of children's fantasy, as I said, I recommend The Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia C. Reed, or anything written by Terry Pratchett. If you are a fan of adult fantasy, then I can recommend American Gods by Neil Gaiman. If you are specifically a fan of novels with main characters that are marginalized for their intelligence, then I recommend Special Topics in Calamity Physics by Marisha Pessel, which is one of my favorite books, and it's something that I plan on talking about very soon. And finally, I would love to hear what you thought of Magicians, so leave a comment or video response with your opinion. Otherwise, thanks for watching and keep on reading.